Okay, and we're full screen. Hello everyone, I think everything's going well. I'm Eric and I've got my guest today, Dr. Hempel. Yeah, hello everyone. Before we get started, I just want to say I see some of you out there. Galina, you were first. Hi. Nazli, always a problem. Always a pleasure. You know, it's always when you start I'm always so excited to see you guys. Elsa, love seeing you. Gloria from Peru. Hi everyone. Yeah, so today we're going to start our live stream and we've got a fantastic guest with us. We've got Dr. Hempel, the language lady.
And thank you so much for having me, Eric. All of you know Eric and I have been talking for so long, and we watch each other's channels, and so it's really interesting. I think it was Saturday was the first time that we actually spoke live, which was really interesting. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to engaging with all of you and asking your questions, see what you all are up to, and yeah, this will be fun.
Yeah, we've been talking and watching each other's channels. The Language Lady is a fantastic channel for ESL teachers. It's got a lot of activities and you focus on a lot of online content too to help teachers that were going through this. And hi, Suta, you're here too. So everyone, if you want to ask any questions or you want to put it in comments, please put it in the comments below, but because we're just going to chat about different things. Let me put it over to you, Dr. Hempel. Tell us about yourself. Where are you from? What do you do?
Okay, well, I am from the United States. I was born in the state of Massachusetts, but I currently live with my husband and my daughter, she's 11, in Pennsylvania. And I've been working as an ESL teacher for, oh my goodness, maybe 22 years. And I've taught all age levels. I've taught from elementary to middle school to high school. I just love teaching all grades. I'm currently teaching 8th grade ESL, and it's been an incredible experience. I teach in a very poor area, a poor city in about 45 minutes away from where I live. And my students come from all over the world, but mainly my students speak Spanish. I have students from Puerto Rico, from the Dominican Republic, from Central America, South America, and then I have some students who are from different countries in Africa. So I have a semi-advantage that I speak Spanish. My parents are from the island of Puerto Rico, so it helps my students who are coming from Spanish-speaking countries to feel comfortable and welcomed into the school. So yeah, it's been great. I saw that there's someone here from Peru, so hola, de Peru.
Yeah, nice.
That's one of the countries I want to visit.
Yeah, you haven't been yet? Yeah, guys, in the comments, if you can speak Spanish, put in some Spanish words in there to help me, because I'm very interested with the languages, but I feel like I should dedicate some more time in there. Suta is just saying, I need 1 year to find my career in teaching. Well, talking about that, where did you study? You know, what university did you study at? Gloria says hola.
Hola, yeah. So when I started, I studied 4 years at a university in Massachusetts. And when I first was studying, I focused on elementary education, and I had a minor in Spanish Latin American studies. And once I was finished, I actually did not get my teaching certificate right away. I have an interesting story. I was a double major in psychology and education, and it was a lot of work. So I had to focus on psychology first. And once I finished, I was able to get an internship at a local elementary school. And through there, I got my hours and my feet wet. And that's when I accrued enough hours to obtain my certificate. So one of recommendations, I always get asked, you know, how to find a teaching job and what's the best way to get in. Honestly, it depends on the schools around you. But what I found that was helpful for me was actually going in person to schools and saying, I would love to teach here. Will you accept me to come here? I can teach for you and that way. So it's really making yourself available and approaching different schools, making yourself available, letting them know what you're willing to do for their schools. That's what actually started my teaching career. It's so funny. I mean, I literally just showed up at a school and they said, yes, we actually do need an ESL teacher, and I was able to work alongside with another teacher until I got comfortable, and the rest is history.
But that's the thing. I see Suta also says, they're from India Anna University, so perhaps in a year they will graduate and they will start teaching. And I think a lot about teaching is just getting that experience. And for me, it was the same thing. You know, I studied to become a teacher, and then I went on to a program where I just wanted to get into the classroom, because the more time you spend doing it, the better you will become. So, and also, let's see. Oh, Martin is here. Hi, Martin. And Just English from Morocco. Hi. Martin, hello all. I'm here for 10 minutes in between classes. He's also got a channel. That brings me to something else. I feel like a lot of teachers, you know, I think it's important to get the experience, and it's even better if you can get training and if you can gather the knowledge. But what got you interested in teaching? Because we ask teachers this a lot, you know, did you want to become a teacher? Did you just kind of fall into it? Or what made that decision for you?
I've always wanted to be a teacher. I love children. I love being around children. I feel like there's a child in me. I joke a lot with my students. I can be very silly, and so that's something that I'm just passionate about. But I think what it fell into, I originally thought I was going to go into special education because I have an older sister. She's 9 years older than myself, and she has special needs. And so my first direction was, okay, what I want to do. I had an aunt in Puerto Rico that worked with special needs children. And so I would go with her to her schools when I would visit for the summers in Puerto Rico. And I would see how she interacted with her students, and I just absolutely loved it. So that was my initial thought. But as I was going through my teaching experiences and going in and out of different classrooms, I wasn't sure if special education was the route for me. And it wasn't till I got my first teaching job in the experience I told you that I didn't have my teaching certificate yet, but a school was willing to take me on as almost like an intern. It was an internship. And so I did that for about 6 months. And then my principal said, we have an opening for a Portuguese bilingual classroom. Would you like to teach it? And I thought, but I don't speak Portuguese. And she said, well, you know, you would be immersing them in English, and you also have your background in Spanish. The languages are very similar. So, and mind you, at this time, I wasn't sure if I wanted to teach bilingual education. That wasn't even in my mind.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, when I started teaching, it was amazing. I love learning about Brazil, and I have students from Brazil and Angola. I fell in love with their spirit, the culture of the room, and I thought, okay, this is what I want to do. And that's when I went into my master's in bilingual education.
I want to add something to this. I think one of the beauties about teaching is it allows you to share part of yourself, and this is exactly what you're saying. Is obviously, you know, you thought, okay, I'll go into special education because I think it's necessary, but then also, you know, now you kind of fell into, you know, where you should use Portuguese or Spanish, and that allowed you to share a part of yourself. And I think if we have more teachers here, it's like, you know, find a way to share yourself with the students and to help them. And I think that's a beautiful story. Actually, we've got Elsa says her hometown is near the Spanish border. Hablo un poco español. Okay.
Oh, qué bueno.
Elsa is one of my favorite viewers. She's been on here a lot, and Martin says such a nice story. Yeah, that's fantastic. Actually, so you train for special education, and I've got a question about that. I think it's very important for teachers to actually, you know, we're going to have some students with special needs. how do we bring them into the classroom? Is there any tips or any ideas that you have for teachers that, they've got their classroom, but there might be one or two students with additional needs? Like, how can you integrate them into the classroom? Do you have any tips for us?
Yes, I do have some learning support. In the United States, we students come with, and I don't like to use that term label, but they do come with a special category, either learning support or emotional learning support. So I've had students who have very certain emotional needs and learning needs. And what I always do is, before they even come into the classroom, I try to establish a relationship with them so that they feel that they can trust me. I will communicate with their parents. And I think that's the first and foremost, most important thing, is to harness that relationship, find out what their interests are, and then pair them up with a friend, someone that they can trust, and then they feel more integrated. But I'm very fortunate that the environment that I have in my classroom, no student feels singled out because they have a learning disability or they have emotional needs. Everyone really truly feels like I try to build a community.
How did you do that though? Is that because of you or because of the environment or the rules or the procedures that you have in class?
It's a mixture of all of those things, but I think where it is that you create a family atmosphere by having an expression of their culture in your room. So if you walk into my classroom, you will see a flag. I always research all my students, where they're from, and I'll have a flag from every country in the classroom, and they absolutely love that. It's so funny because I'll have my Puerto Rican students saying, "Where's my flag, Missy?" Because most of my students will call me Missy because that's normal in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
And they're, "Oh, there it is. Thank you. Yay." And so they get very proud and will chant, "Oh, my country's being represented." So I think that's really important. And I use phrases or stories or experiences from my life that they also can relate to. So I think that really harnesses that. And I think just being yourself, not being afraid to be silly. I in class, and that really truly has built that type of rapport and friendship in the class.
I've got an embarrassing story. I was meeting a friend a couple of days ago, and they asked me, "Okay, Eric, tell us about your flag, South Africa's flag." And so I showed them the flag. It's a very colorful flag. If you've seen it, it's got many colors. And they said, "Okay, explain your flag to us." And I haven't explained my flag since I was in primary school, in elementary school. And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I started off with some of the colors that I can remember what it actually symbolizes, but they told me, "Oh, Eric, you don't know your own country." When I got stuck, I'm like, "Yeah." I felt so embarrassed. So I afterwards looked it up. I'm not going to make the same mistake. So I think with your students, you do the same thing. You allow them to share a part of yourself. Now, we've got some questions that I got from other teachers asking us about something. And actually, our friend Christina, she was one of the latest ones she sent a question this morning, and I wanted to punish her and ask her question last, but actually I think it's a very good question because it's relevant to us. Her question is, okay, so obviously with the whole COVID thing, the world has been crazy, but we're moving into summer. So her question is, what are you doing this summer? Do you have summer camps? And also it looks towards the future. What will you do in this year after this horrible situation? Is there anything specific that you'll do, or how do you see life moving the rest of the year? So I wanted to ask this last, but I think it's a very important question to ask at the start.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, our school district already before COVID-19, they already had a after-school program. So those teachers, what they're doing, are being offered the same program but after school. But online. So it's going to occur during the summer, during morning to afternoon. I think it's going to last for about 3 hours. And so they're going to be helping them with homework help or whatever specialties that the teachers have. That's pretty much what we have so far in the school district where I'm teaching. And one of the things I'll be doing is I already know this. Since I'm an 8th grade teacher, I already know the students that I'll be receiving next year. So my goal is I'm going to be connecting with each and every one of them and possibly do some home visits, because in our state, some counties the restrictions are being lifted, so we can go into different areas. So I want to introduce myself. But in terms of the future, it's going to be really interesting. I can't say I don't know what it's going to look like in my school building. I do know that our school district is trying to be proactive, and they're actually creating a virtual online academy and giving students the option to enroll in those schools. And it's going to range from elementary to high school, and that way those parents of those children that don't feel comfortable or having reservations about coming back to school in person can actually enroll in these online academies.
Just quickly here. Elsa said she's Portuguese actually, and then Letty from Quetta. Sorry, Letty. Hello from Quetta.
Oh, from Qatar. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Great to see you both. Hi, Letty. And then also, hi from Russia, home country, Uzbekistan. Wow. Welcome, everyone.
Oh.
Yeah. I think it's very interesting. If I look at the universities here in Korea, some universities are saying that they're going to stay online and just provide online classes for the next semester. But in general, and hi mom, my mom is here too. She says hello. So I think in general, most schools and universities, we want to open up. Teachers don't want to do online. We want to see our students. We want to teach them. So I think in general, most schools and places are looking towards opening up with some restrictions. I hope it's not online. So I just, for myself, I see it moving forward is schools will open up after summer, I think for the next semester. I think there will be a lot more you're going to have to sanitize and wash hands and social distance, but classes will start up again, and hopefully, we'll get used to it. And then by next year, hopefully, fingers crossed, everything will be almost back to normal. And I think that's what we're looking for. But I think that this whole situation has been what has been the impact, do you think, of this whole situation on teaching? And Katie from Argentina, hi. Hi, Katie. Yeah, what do you think is the impact of this on education?
Well, it's really changed how we think about what good teaching looks like and how to transfer what you do in a classroom and how do you make that magic or that connection come alive when you're online. I think that's one of the biggest things. And I think one of the biggest things too, at least in the experience of the teachers in my school building, is they're trying to still navigate Google Classroom and what they want their classroom to look like and how do they incentivize their students to come online. I don't know. I'm curious to know from all of you teachers that are here today, how are you getting your students to come online? Because I know in my instance, it wasn't easy. Not all students were coming online. They would prefer just to get the assignments done. And so that's one of our concerns is how do you encourage them and motivate them to show up online and so forth and on Zoom or Google Meet or whatever device. But I think that's one of the biggest things. And we also have to learn for our school, because of the population we serve, a lot of our students come from lower income families. So we have learned to adapt and find resources. So there's 2 days in the week we provide lunches for our students. So they come to their community school and the teachers there are volunteering and providing food. So I think it's not just looking at the academic portion, but really looking at just the physical needs and the emotional needs. So we have counselors that are on staff as well that are providing support for students, because there's a lot
Imagine
that our students are dealing
like
with.
it's difficult to imagine. Imagine if you were 10 years old, 12 years old, and suddenly they told you, listen, you can't see your friends for 6 months. You're like, you wouldn't understand.
Yes.
Obviously, it's a bit easier now. Students are used to technology. I want to quickly say here, Letty says, I agree. We all want to have presential classes. In September, we will give smaller classes with distancing. And everyone, put in your, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, please put it in the comments below and I'll read it. I think from a teacher's point of view, and we've talked about this numerous times on the live stream, is that for teachers, we're learning this new skill, how to teach online. And, you know, I think it's not going to go away. I think it's going to be part of education in the future. So we've got to get comfortable with it, and it's a whole new part of teaching.
Yeah, to piggyback what I was saying prior and to answer your question, I think it also has changed that I think teachers are going to be more willing and apt to use more technology. I think once we're back in school and teaching is back to the way it used to look like, I think teachers are going to be incorporating more digital assignments. I think that there's going to be a lot of more flexible learning, not just I'm the teacher and I'm teaching you and let's practice this skill. But I think now that teachers realize that, oh, I can assign something online or have them do that before they even come to school so that they're pre-teaching a skill, I think it's really going to completely change how we view teaching and learning.
Martin started talking about hybrid teaching. You know, that's going to be something that we'll find in the future. I am worried, however, because I've spoken to many teachers, and I think one of the things that we've both been looking into is online teaching, and I've heard some stories of teachers doing things that they're really good teachers, but when they teach online, suddenly they do things that doesn't make sense to me as a real life teacher. Like, let's say you're teaching speaking, or you know, you're doing ESL, where they just let the students record themselves and send it in, whereas they would only communicate through discussions, writing. And I thought, you know what, you've got Zoom, you've got Google Classroom, you've got Hangouts. There's no reason not to do it. It's just a different skill that you're supposed to learn. Okay, Elsa says here, most of my students are youngsters and adults, and in general they have been more committed having online classes. Wow. Sometimes I think some of them really dislike being closed inside a classroom. What do you think about that?
Most of them don't like to be inside the physical classroom?
Yeah, Elsa, it's just because you're such a good teacher. No, and they enjoy talking with you online. No, she says that her students prefer online.
Interesting. For my students, I have seen that they prefer to be in the classroom. They really, my students have a very high talk need. They need to be talking and engaging, but they're also very self-conscious of how they sound, and I feel like they feel more comfortable to take risks inside the classroom in person than online, which I think is interesting. And I don't know if it's because the camera, and they see it and they see themselves, and they're more aware of what they look like. I don't know. It's really interesting. Plus, I teach middle school, so they're pre-adolescents, and they're just going through all these different phases, and they're afraid of, feeling embarrassed or sounding weird. So I think that's what that stems from. But also, I think that's wonderful that your students are, adapting well to online teaching. That's really interesting. I've never heard it that way, of students feeling more comfortable in a whole online versus them being in person. So,
Saima says, hi Saima, welcome back. It's always nice to have you. It's always nice to see some of the viewers come in that we see every week. I think with me, my experience has been very positive. Actually, I went to the train station today, and someone comes up to me and says, hi, Mr. Eric. And I look down, and it's one of my students, and my online students. I've never met them before, and I just ran into them, and I said, hi, how are you doing? And they said, oh, I recognized you. And I think, it was so nice to meet them in person. But so far, I've also had very positive classes so far, and many of my students also said that they prefer online. But you know, there are limitations. I think it's important for teachers to find a way to show themselves on camera and to make the best of it.
I almost feel like it's more comfortable for older students, perhaps, because they have more responsibilities and they're trying to balance. Whereas I feel that the younger children, middle school, I think they prefer. But it depends.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's why my school district is moving towards providing that option, because our students deserve having options. It shouldn't just be strictly, okay, you have to come in person. So it will be really interesting to see how the numbers look in terms of enrollment in our school.
Very
once
interesting,
they open virtual academy.
I think most schools are worried about that. I mean, you might miss a lot of students. Saima says here, we look weird in front of the camera. We don't look good.
Yes.
Well, you know what? When I don't know if it's the same for you, but when I started YouTube, you know, I hated the sound of my voice. It's still not great, I know. And, you know I look weird, but at least now we get this idea. I think a lot of teachers don't know what they look like in front of the classroom, but now, fortunately, we've had the experience where we've gotten used to it, and it's fine. You know, I don't care about my face or my voice anymore, and we can use it as a tool.
You're exactly right. When I started making YouTube videos, I said, is that what I look like? Is that what I sound like? And even just making eye contact, you know, where to look is so important. I mean, that's something that took a while for me to get used to, and just how to make yourself feel, or make the people watching you feel comfortable and have that connection is something that it takes practice. And I think teachers are amazing and resilient that they're learning all of these different things. I mean, not one teacher in my building complained. They said, no, this is what we have to do for our students. Yeah. Okay, how can we make and learn and make this better?
That's a great attitude. Leti says here, I've been doing online classes for the first time in my life these past 3 months. The best problem has been, or probably the worst problem has been, some of the students that don't have technology or good internet.
I totally relate to you. That was exactly our experience. Yeah. So in our school, in the United States, we have what's called Title I schools. Title I means that the students in that particular school district are of low socioeconomic status. So we didn't have, for example, each student didn't have their own laptop. So when the lockdown occurred, students didn't have a way to go online. I have students who don't even have a television. That's how severe it is. I have students who don't have a computer. The only thing they have is their phone, or some students didn't have internet connections. Yeah. So how we went about that is we started a partnership with a local television station that had enrichment activities that students who could go on their television at certain times would at least have that. And then we were able to get permission to use the laptops that were already in our classroom and deliver those to our students. So I actually have a video coming out in about half an hour where I share my experiences, because I wanted to share it with other teachers because it is really life-changing. It's very dramatic, you know, this change. So I went to my classroom for the first time after 2 months, and when I went to my room, all my laptops were gone because they had to use every single laptop and share it with students. And students, we don't know if we're going to get those laptops back once we're back in school.
I think, well, first, let's say everyone, as soon as the live stream's finished, let's go and watch the video. Everybody just go over and watch the whole video. Leti says, Elsa says, yeah, I don't think online classes work so well with children. Yeah, very difficult. I mean, children in general. And then Leti says,
compounded with that, I wanted to add too, is that my students, most of them don't have a strong command of the English language. So understanding how to log on to Zoom, there are many times where I was providing technical support to parents. Yeah, you know, that it really made us aware that our website for our school district is not ESL friendly. It needs to be translated into multiple languages, and that there needs to be tutorials on how to log on to Zoom, how to log on to Google Meet in the student's native language. So it's a bad thing that turned into a good thing, because it made us as a district aware that we are far behind in making sure that all students feel welcome.
Well, okay. This is the one thing that I want everyone to understand, is that actually, this pandemic has been horrible, but it has shown us the shortcomings with online and how we can reach our students. And now I think, well, in general, technology is only going to improve. That's what technology does. And also schools can start looking at it. I think this might be the start of something great. So obviously things are very difficult, and I'm in a very privileged position in South Korea where everyone has internet. Everybody's got super quick internet. They've got phones. They've got computers. We've got 4 computers. So it's very easy for me. But I see that some people say here. Lexi says, we need to get parents on board. I have big headaches with them. I think that's a whole other thing. That's something I don't have to worry about. I know how it is with parents, though, when I used to teach. Gloria says, in my case, a few parents couldn't help their kids online because they were working full-time in spite of the COVID issue. My students are 5 years old.
Yes, that was exactly our situation. We had families that they were left without a job, so they're already working with a salary that is very hard to live on top of losing their jobs. In their mind, they're thinking, I'm in survival mode. I am trying just to survive and make it day to day. So instead of grading our students on like an A, B, C, D scale, all we did was give them a scale of how engaged they were in the classroom.
Okay.
Or even if a student was chatting with me on Facebook and asking me questions about how to do assignments, that's what we based it on, because we felt that it wasn't fair. If we were going to grade them, we would be grading them on privilege, not on other factors.
I think
that was hard.
It's very hard. I want to get back to the parents now. I just think Saima says yes. I thought it only happens with third world country kids, where says we need to get parents on board, but it's everywhere. And then we've got Christina from Plan for Fun ESL says, oh dear, still talking about online teaching. Well, Christina, if you were here earlier, we answered your question first, so you missed out. She's always so mean to me. I think the big thing is connecting with parents is very important. How has your interaction with parents been about this? So you said you've helped some parents, and how do they feel in general?
I feel like I've had to be sole counselor and tech support. I've had parents who feel comfortable enough to share everything that's on their heart. Like, help me, Dr. Hempel. My child is not motivated. I'm going through all of these different issues. So it's a nice feeling to know that they feel comfortable enough to share their struggles and so forth. So overall, the parents have been very receptive, and they have been it's funny because before we went online, I had parents messaging me. I make myself very accessible, and I know that some school districts frown upon this, but every parent, I allow them to call me, and they never abuse it. I've never had any issues with that. And so they feel comfortable texting me whenever they have a question. The first question they asked about a month or two weeks after the pandemic hit was, when are online classes starting? And they were very concerned about how their child was going to be continue learning and growing. So I started teaching online before we actually had every student had a laptop. So the students who already had a computer at home, I was already teaching them. So it was, and honestly, sometimes it was just for students to feel a sense of connection with someone. So sometimes it wasn't actually a regular lesson. It was just, how are you doing?
Exactly.
How are things going? Do you need anything? And I also called every single one of my students and asked their families, Do you have enough food? Do you need supplies? Are you okay? Is everything okay? And I let them know about our lunch program.
Yeah,
because
I think we took for granted
extreme levels of poverty.
We took it for granted, how teachers actually play a role in society, and where you help out these parents, and also the interaction with the students and the parents and the teachers. Like now suddenly you take those teachers away, and you realize how much they've actually done. Now,
they are absolutely.
We've already been talking for 35 minutes, and we haven't, except for Christina's question, we haven't really gotten. I've gotten 3 questions. Sorry, we've gotten 3 questions, and I want to get started on those because we've got lots of English teachers here that they're looking for some help or some ideas. And we've got a question from Joe Jean, and she asked, how to teach tenses and motivate students to learn it. Okay. Do you have any ideas on those? No, on that question?
I think what's really important with tense, you're talking about verb tenses.
Right. So, So this is the how do we teach them tenses, verb tenses, and how do we motivate them or get them interested in that?
Yes. With my students, they learn best when we make it more practical and something that they can see in everyday life. So we do a lot of games. So it's funny that she asked about that because I'm actually going to be releasing a video on, is it Wednesday? Yes, on Wednesday that is about that very topic. And it's just a game where you start a sentence and there's a missing verb in that sentence, and the students have to guess what that verb is. And you can change the tense of the sentence. So it could be in the future tense, in the past tense. So it's taking popular games that your students are familiar with and tweaking it so that they're practicing that. There's also, it's funny, I'm looking at across my room and there's the headbands game, whereas you hold up, there's a card that's on your forehead, and a student, you have to ask questions to see if you can get students to be able to know what is on their card, and they can give them clues, but so that's another way you can teach verb tenses. So there's so many different ways, but I think the best way is making it a game and also for setting up your students to practice it in real life situations. Yeah. So what do you do during the day? You brush your teeth. Cook dinner. It's like making it relevant to their lives.
Very
and making
important.
It fun, I think will help motivate them.
Yeah, and guys, the rest of you, if you've got any ideas, put it in the comments below. I think anyone we can learn from on this channel. In this chat, everybody shares ideas and we can talk about it. I want to add exactly what you said. It's it has to be about them. So in my classes, you practice the past tense by asking them about the past, and if they make mistakes, you help them correct it, and then in the future when you ask them again, so it's incorporating their own stories and their own lives into it. You're going to ask them about if you're going to practice the future, you're going to ask them about their futures, and you can give them examples. Obviously, I think it has to be throughout your whole lesson. You're going to work with tenses so much because it's one of the biggest issues.
Absolutely. And you can even show them little scripts or clips of a video and then have them go into groups and you can give them, depending on their language level, because a lot of my students are the entering and beginning, I have to have choices, and they choose and point to a picture that matches the video, and I'll use a video clip from a movie that they watch. So I'll ask them, is Spider-Man, and give them 3 options of verbs. It's anything that you can connect it to what they experience, what they enjoy, their interests. My students love TikTok. So, it's just, there's different things like that. They love Snapchat. So I try to integrate anything that they're passionate and they love in the classroom. I
want to talk about, what is the traditional way that we used to learn tenses? When I was growing up, you would get that, the book, and you you had to write out these sentences, okay, past, progressive, or whatever tense you had to write out those tenses, or they gave you a tense with the basic verb and you had to change it to suit that tense, right? And that's the traditional model, and some students actually still like that. I know when I was growing up, I actually enjoyed it because there was a system to it, and if I could figure out one, I can do it for the rest too. So if you want to use some of that in the classroom, where you give your students tenses and you say, oh, okay, what is this in the future? What is this in the past? That's also okay, because as long as the students are interacting with it.
You know, it's funny. One of the ways I had to take Latin for 6 years when I was in high school, and till this day, because as an adult, I remember how my Latin teacher taught me tenses, and she taught it through music, through songs. So every time we learned the present tense, she would come up with a song. So it was like, I am, you are, he is, we are, you are, they are. I will, you will, and we learned those in Latin. To this day, I still know them. So
amazing.
That's another, I've done that with my students. And my students are 14 and 15-year-olds, and I would make them stand up and sing it, and they loved it. And they would chant those same tenses in their mind as they're writing it down. So that's another way too. I think music, games, using visuals, task cards, games, they're great ways to get students to learn the tenses. And there's nothing wrong with the traditional way in practicing with the worksheet. That can also be the I do part of the lesson, where the student is practicing the skill. Like, okay, I practice singing it, I practice in a game, I practice in a conversation with a friend. Okay, now it's time for me to write. And
I wouldn't focus totally just on the traditional model. Obviously, you want to keep it fun and interesting. Like you said, you remember those songs, but you're not going to remember a worksheet you did, 10 years ago. Exactly. And that shows it. So Christina says, I'm not mean, it's called banter. Okay, Christina. And she asked Letty where Letty is from, and Letty says almost verbatim exactly what you said. She says, I agree in TPR. We don't really teach tenses as grammar, but through conversation. Even my 6-year-old uses a few past tense verbs because it's relative to their routine. And then she says exactly what you said, verbs in chants. So using chants for them to learn that structure.
Yes. Yeah, wow. That's great.
Yeah, and she says she's from Ceuta, a Spanish enclave in the north of Africa. I teach in a private academy. Wow, that's very interesting. That's so well, Letty, it's great having you here because you give a lot of good advice.
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, the next one is actually from Saima that was here, and Saima asks, different methods of teaching English. So this is a broad one, and you started talking about it actually. TPR, PPP, ReLIA, needs analysis. So let's say, take us through your class. What do you do with your students? How do you teach English? It's a broad question.
Yes, I mean, there's a lot of modeling that goes on. Like whenever we start the class, I always have a language objective on the board, and it's the content and the language objective and how we're going to learn a specific skill. But because I teach an intervention program, it's pretty much scripted already for me. I just tweak it and add my part into it. So most of the time it starts with a story that we're reading together. And if we're focusing on verbs or a particular vocabulary word, we'll isolate that. And then we come into, there's always a conversation aspect. So we look at a story, and then they will turn and talk with their partner and ask the question, answer the question together, and we'll share as a group. And then usually there's that skill of the day. But I think when it comes to teaching English in general, there's so many different modalities. I personally love project-based learning, where students are finding out an answer to a question and using their environment to practice English. So for example, how can we can have an overarching question as, how can we make our school better? And then students create surveys and go out into the the school and ask different questions, and then they're using English in practical senses. I used to do that when I taught as a dual language teacher. I was a Spanish and English teacher in a school. So right now, I don't have as many of those options because it's a very strict, regimented intervention program. But I think, there's just so many different ways. Like you mentioned, there's TPR, where you're mentioning a sentence. You're not just acting it out or showing the motions, but also if I'm teaching a sentence like I went to the store, I went to the store, just isolating that so students know that those are separate words. I utilize that. Oh gosh, there's just so many different ways to teach
I think the great thing is, as teachers, we're supposed to try all these different ways, because you can learn something from someone else and then incorporate that in your class. And then whatever you're comfortable with whatever you works, I think it should be 80% of what works and what you enjoy, and maybe 10%, 20% trying something new. In my classes, I'm getting very lazy these days, so I'm pushing my students to do a lot of activities together. The more they work together, like you said, project-based learning, where they work towards a similar goal and they have to communicate about something, role-playing, doing working with a partner. I just want to get my students to give them as much possible time to actually talk about things. That's very important for me, to get them to engage with the language. So I would instruct them, and I would talk about something, and then I would get into it. Okay, so Tarifa last year. Okay, Christina says, so your academy's already decided to make smaller classes. I thought the Spanish government decided to send everyone to school in September and private schools will follow. And then Leti also says, before I forget, I want to say a big thank you to you and Mooncake, who have kept me sane in this difficult time. Yeah, Mooncake is fantastic. I think she's done so many good videos. I haven't spoken to Mooncake yet. You've talked with her before.
Yes, Mooncake is a very dear friend of mine, and we speak probably once or twice a week. And we're actually going to be collaborating on a future video. She has a segment on her channel that's called Community Games. So we're really excited. We've been throwing ideas back and forth. How can we collaborate? So that's one thing that we're talking about. So yeah, I'm so glad that our channels have helped you, and thank you so much. That really means a lot.
Yeah, I think, sometimes we don't realize, just by sharing some ideas, we can help people out. And that's all it is, For me too, I'm very limited in some aspects, but if I can share one thing that has worked for me, maybe it can help out. And I think that's where it comes from, using these different styles of teaching English. So if we wrap up that question, it's, make it fun, get the students to interact with the ideas, and yeah, you can use any of that.
I think absolutely, like using the game-based approach. One thing I wanted to add to that too is putting them in situations like pretending that this is a restaurant. Okay, what do we need? And that also draws in a lot of language and situations and planning, and authentic. I think making English as authentic as possible is extremely important. So
because it is always changing. You could have books from 10 years ago, and then the words they use in it, the vocabulary nobody uses right now. And I think so that's why it's important to do that. I'm going to move into the last question, because we've only got like 10 minutes left. And this final question is actually a question from me. So this is the most important question, because someone asked me, Eric, what makes a good English teacher? And I thought, okay, that's a great idea for a video in the future. Somebody asked me about it. So what do you think makes a good ESL teacher in your experience?
In my experience, I have found that it's, number one is caring about the student and where the student is from, and trying to learn everything that you can about, not their country in a general sense, but really knowing the nuances in the language. And once you know the patterns of that student's language, it's going to impact how you teach. Because, for example, in Spanish, the adjective comes after the noun, whereas in English, the adjective comes before the noun. So that's really important. It's just knowing those rules of their language. And I think also being compassionate and really advocating for them, because in my school district, not all teachers are willing to adapt their teaching for our English language learners. So I think a strong ESL teacher has to be one that is willing to collaborate with other teachers and share strategies. I mean, you can't be shy. You have to be willing to put yourself out there, provide teaching strategies to your school, and as you were saying before, Eric, just making your classroom come alive, be fun. A good ESL teacher makes sure that their curriculum and their books and reflects their students. So, when we pick up a book or we're reading a story, I want my students to see their experiences. And if it's not there, I'll find the resources. So, a lot of my students come from, for example, Guatemala, where they have experienced really traumatic experiences. And so if we're talking about Civil War, if we're talking about that in the United States, then that's a perfect opportunity to talk about war that has occurred in Guatemala, so that they feel like, wow, I can contribute to the conversation. So I really try to make a concerted effort. And in my classroom, students are going to see themselves. I think that's so important. When they don't see themselves, that's where the disconnect occurs.
Okay, so I think it's Zainab actually also says here, does this approach, can it be applied to large groups with 45 learners? I think to add to that, it's very important for a teacher to help their student, to connect their students to the learning. So you want to adapt whatever material you have for the students. Another thing I will add is you can't be shy. You've got to interact with the students. This is all about communicating, right? And if you can communicate, you can be shy another time, but when you get into the class, you're supposed to ask them and talk with them and express yourself and get them to talk. That's so important. And how to apply this to a group of large students, a large class is, I think, songs, chants. If you explain something, then put them into smaller groups if it's possible. TPR, you can ask him to add one side of the class to act something out to the other side. I think you've got to find ways to take that material that you have or that activity and applying that to a larger group. I just did a video on how to work with large classes before too.
That really has helped me is when I have a large class, you do whole class teaching and modeling and showing them how you want them to accomplish a certain task. But then you break them up into smaller groups that are more manageable, making sure that there's one student who's fairly strong in each group. And then I, as a teacher, walking around and monitoring and just really following through and working with them one-on-one is the best approach when you have a large class. It's definitely doable. I know. I'm curious to know your class sizes, if you can mention that in the comments, because I know for our class, the size can go up to as large as 32. But I'm really curious in your countries just write down how many are the class sizes.
Yeah, everyone put in how large are your classes. I got some more here. Letty says, plan for fun. You are right. Christina, you are right. But, things are changing daily. We're thinking of autumn and winter. Okay, yeah. I think it's very true. I think the information we're getting, who knows where we'll be a month from now, how things will change. I feel like we're all just stuck in this current, just pulling us, and we're just doing our best to stay afloat. Yeah. And then Mode says here, because of the curriculum, we have to teach vocabulary, grammar, and skills just in 45 minutes. There is no time for me to use PPP to teach grammar. Please tell me how to deal with the problem. Okay. Very quickly, what do you think about? You've got limited time to teach a group of students. By the way, guys, put in how large are your classes. How can you teach that much in a short amount of time? Do you think that's a problem, that's an issue, once a week?
Oh, wow, just once a week. That is hard. I teach 3 times a week with my ESL, just my ESL students, and the rest of the week I am co-teaching with an English teacher with mixed classes, so students who are ESL students and students who speak English as their first language. And one way we got about it is, one thing I would like to explore more is the flipped model. And that's where, before students even enter the class, when they're home, have them watch a video or an introduction or some kind of task that will introduce them to the concept that you're going to be teaching them. I think that's something that can help curb the time. Also doing stations. I know a lot of elementary students use that, but our elementary teachers, but there's no reason why at the middle and high school or university you can do that as well.
That's a very good idea, stations,
station model.
I think, I'm actually doing a type of flip model because, our instruction time is so short. So you want the students to be prepared and ready to come in. So vocabulary, if you can give them a vocabulary list every week that they can prepare before they get to class, you don't have to go through it. You can ask them some questions just to check if they've done it. Grammar.
You can report yourself doing the lesson of vocabulary instruction and send it to your students and say, okay, before class, I need you to watch this.
I do
and that way you can focus on other aspects.
I do a quick video. Of myself. I go through the work. I say, okay, listen, you're going to do these pages. I quickly explain it so that when they come to class, we can focus mostly on doing the activities. So they're doing that. And then also incorporating the grammar into the reading, or the skills using that grammar. So you can use topics. You can have something that you want to plan. And I think every lesson should be like that, where you've got your vocabulary, the grammar points, and the skills that you want to learn. Most lesson plans, you've got most of those. Okay, we're almost running out of time. Obviously, we can go longer, but I like to try and keep it to an hour. Letty says, as a teacher, imagination is so important. So that's something I want to say, because we have to use it. Let me quickly read this one. Saima says, I'm doing puppet shows to interact with the... Letty says, imagination is important. Sometimes I feel like an actor changing my voice and body language. Yeah, I think we all have to become more expressive. Saima says, I'm doing puppet shows to interact with them. I feel they listen more to the puppet than to me.
I'm looking across the room, and I teach online to students in China. And whenever I have a new student, I open up my class with my puppet. So you're completely right. It's like there. And when I was starting as a kindergarten teacher, I had a student who would not speak at all. She was so shy, and I would have her talk to me through my puppet, and it made her come alive. And slowly I would take the puppet away, and she would then start speaking to me. So I completely agree with you. Puppets are a great way to bridge that gap and to really make students feel comfortable. It really does.
That's a great thing, for kids. They like to be entertained, and as teachers, we should be imaginative and we should entertain them, because that's the best way they're going to learn. Okay, and then we've got some numbers. Christina says, she teaches in Italy, I think. So public school system. Just 1 second. So public school system, 35, private, 5 to 12 students, which is okay. Sutta is the one that says 45 students, very large classes. Gloria, 24 is okay. Letty says stage schools about 30 and 10 to 16 for private, probably. Alsa, 20. Gloria, I teach math and science in Spanish. I'm a Spanish immersion teacher, and I have 2 classes, 24 each.
My career, yes. Oh my goodness, yes. I love teaching Spanish immersion. I have such fun. I miss it so much. Sometimes I think I want to leave ESL to do Spanish immersion, but they're both pulling at me. That's so neat. Oh, wonderful. Wow, so it's a really wide range of numbers of classroom sizes. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I think we're learning a lot too. Let me just quickly go to comments again. Oh, where's my comments? I think I lost my comments. Oh, sorry, I have to play live chat. Got it back. Okay, and then Saima says 45 students in my class, quite a large and really impossible to get everyone individually. Kids get upset. Those who don't have a chance at all get kicked. Go throughout the session. Okay, yeah, guys, I think this is very tough. You know, each teacher has a unique situation, and it's up to us to navigate it. Okay, Dr. Hempel, we're coming to the end of our show. What would you like to talk about? What will you focus on in the future? It's all up to you.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you so much for having me on. This was such a pleasure. I loved interacting with everyone who's watching today. Thank you so much, because you have choices of what to watch and what to do today. So I really appreciate that you're willing to come on. And yes, I'm basically going to continue all throughout the summer and the rest of the year, pushing out videos. I normally push out a video on Wednesdays, but now I'm going to be sharing a video on Sundays and Wednesdays. I usually publish at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I basically make videos on what you want to watch and what you're curious about. And most of my subscribers have been asking for more games, more interactive activities, so I've been doing that as well. So whatever you want to see and what questions you have, that's what I want to share. Today's video is not my typical style video. I'm sharing with you a day in my life on my last day of teaching this year in quarantine. So I shared with you what I did to wrap up the school year with my students online, because how do you end the school online? That's so weird, you know, it's so different. So I shared with you what I ended up doing, and I also took you to my classroom so you could see what it looks like and what that was like, because we only had 3 hours to wrap up our classroom for the year. And the principal gave us a specific window of time to do that. So for everybody was scheduled the time. So when I went into the building, usually I'm packing up my classroom with 20 other teachers on the same floor, and instead I was by myself on my floor. I felt lonely. It was so weird, but
it's sad, really. Yeah.
But one of the things on the works is I'm working on some products for teachers to use online. So some activities that you can use for teaching your students. So I'm also working on that as well. And hopefully by this time next year, I will have launched my own website, and you can then look at those materials and things like that. But in the meantime, I'm still going to be pushing out my videos.
Well, I think you've got videos that help us with activities and ideas for teaching, but I also enjoy your vlogs where you are more creative. You know, everyone, because I look at your videos and I think, man, I should work a bit more on my editing or telling a story, because mine is just blunt, you know, it's very lazy. So we're here. We're almost, guys, if you want to say some last words, if you want to put something in there, put it in there. Because Leti says, Saima, big hug. You're very brave doing such a big class. I couldn't do it. Leti, I'm sure you could. And Hazrul says, how to be a member. Yeah, guys, you can join my channel. You can join Dr. Hempel's channel. It's called The Language Lady. You can check us out on Facebook too. We're there. I think it's very important for teachers. What I found is that, you know, that we're connecting and we're part of this community. Yeah. And in these times, I'm always so surprised when I talk to everyone. I get so excited because it makes me happy talking about something that's very important to us.
One of my biggest joys from doing YouTube is getting to know all of you and hearing your stories and what's happening in your countries. It's very fascinating to me, and the ability to help share something that my students enjoy. You know, my students absolutely love it. They're like, can you please make a video about when we did this game? Can you share that? They love that. So it's been a lot of fun. But one of the things I want to explore in the future is making mini documentaries focusing on the life of my students from different countries, because they have amazing stories to tell, and I would love to share their stories. It's a lot of it's just so eye-opening and interesting, and opens up a world that you didn't realize or know about your students.
That sounds fantastic. Okay, everyone, we're going to finish now. I'll quickly read the last ones. English Danny, he also has a channel which is for English learners. He says, I'm subscribed to the Language Lady. Lady says, always keep in mind online classes. I do appreciate it. Gloria, it was ghosty. Gloria, I don't understand that one. It was ghosty. Saima says, thank you. Just learned a lot and learning to improve. Excellent. She just subscribed. Saima says, thank you, Leti. Yes, Leti, thank you for all your ideas. Gloria, thank you so much. Elsa, the Language Lady, I really loved your kind approach to foreign students and your great tips. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for coming on and chatting. Dr. Hempel, it was amazing having you. Hopefully we can talk again in the future. And everyone, once we finish the stream, go over and check out her video. It probably just came out 5 minutes ago.
All right, thank you so much. I hope everyone has a wonderful day.
Okay, everyone, thank you so much. Dr. Hempel, have a good day. Everyone, I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.